Welcome to the Point. We're back for our final segment of the day, and I'm excited. They always say you save the best for last, but it's hard. Our last segment, we were talking about the great Kobe. I mean, come on, Kobe Bryant. How can you not say that segment was awesome? But I'm excited for this one. Now, I've known our next guest for a couple of years, and it was amazing. When I first interviewed him, there was a little rinky-dink, pathetic, sad Google Hangout called Social Hangout. That's right, that yours truly did. And I interviewed our next guest at LinkedIn World Headquarters a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I geeked out to meet this person because when you talk social selling and how to use LinkedIn, and mind you, this was a few years ago when LinkedIn, they weren't even acquired yet. They were just LinkedIn, standard LinkedIn, not Microsoft LinkedIn. They were just LinkedIn, the amazing company everybody was looking at. So I can't wait to bring on this next guest. So let's welcome to our show today the wonderful and my good friend, Koka Sexton. Koka, how you doing, bud?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Eric.
It's good to be here, man. It's good to have you here on the show. It's good to see my good buddy. You're out there killing it in everything you do. You are a marketing guru, but let's get in our time machine and go back. LinkedIn. Let's talk about LinkedIn as a whole. You worked for them for a number of years. You were basically the face of social selling. Let's face it. You and a few other folks are I always call you the godfather of social selling. It doesn't really matter the platform, but when we talk about social selling, something that we all do every day and using social, this was back in the day, folks, when people were like amazed that you could use Twitter to get clients or Facebook to draw traffic and LinkedIn to draw traffic. And before people were getting hit on in LinkedIn InMail or between when you took a connection from somebody you didn't know and 2 minutes later they were selling you something. That LinkedIn, if we remember that LinkedIn, that's the LinkedIn we were. So Koka's kind of the godfather. So tell us, I want to know what your thoughts are watching this amazing platform and social selling as we know it. Was it like 4 years ago, 5 years ago? It feels like forever. It has to be over 5 because I've lived in Oregon for 4. So it's probably 6 or 7 years. Wow, that's a long time. Holy crap.
All right, yeah.
Wow, that's a long time ago. All of a sudden it feels old. That's why we look so gray here, right? Holy crap.
That's true.
Sorry, folks, we have to have these moments. But what's your thoughts watching social selling go from when you were out there? Remember everybody getting on here going, social selling it's fake, it's beat. You used to see the arguments everywhere, right? And now it's like,
oh yeah,
now social selling is selling.
I was going to say, I think that it is just selling, and going back in time, I remember, and like it's very nostalgic. I try to think back to it, but the earliest days, I had so many haters because it was so contrarian to this idea of salespeople dialing for dollars all day, and I was providing an alternative. And all of the gurus, the sales trainers that had basically built their entire livelihood around this idea of passing gatekeepers and cold calling would look at me and say, oh my gosh, this guy's a hack. He doesn't know what he's doing. And, fast forward just even a couple of years after that, I realized I was onto something, which eventually is what led me into LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true. When you look at it, I mean, you were a keynote at Dreamforce. I mean, you were on a stage with some pretty big names. Dreamforce is huge. I don't care who you say. Anything that has 250,000 people attend it and shuts down downtown San Francisco, I'm going to say that's a big deal. And you were on there. And you're right, you have haters. I mean, who didn't during that time? I think we all did. Or you were part of the gang that was hating. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. Maybe the host of this show was one of those guys. I don't know. His multiple personalities are showing right now. But, it's
the beauty is that most of them have come around now. I think true. Now, social is so ingrained in the sales methodology, and it wasn't as more than it ever was before. And if I even had a small piece of moving that needle, there's no way like I was a major, kind of force behind it. But I know I had an effort into it, and it's exciting to see how social selling really is just sales now.
It is.
The same way that people are saying account-based marketing or ABM, is just going to be marketing moving forward. Like you give it a name to give it some importance, to put a spotlight and draw some attention and build out the kind of thought process around it. But eventually it is just part of the bigger whole anyway.
Yeah. And that leads us to something that's big in 2020, Koka. And one of those things is building your personal brand, right? There's so many brands out there that are well known. But we saw it, and we'll pick on Salesforce just because I think they've always done marketing pretty well. And you look at their leader, their fearless leader and founder, Mark Benioff. Mark still runs his own handle, right? So there's that separation, but everybody who knows SaaS or lives in the Silicon Valley, and if you're in business, you should know who the heck Mark Benioff is. You look at Mark Benioff, he is the face, he's the brand. So he's built a good personal brand and Salesforce stands alone. Or you look at other companies and they haven't. And I think that there's a huge gap with a lot of people right now, not understanding that you can have a brand, but you need to also be yourself, have some sort of personal image. So when they look at it, you go, oh, that person. And there's a lot of people that you look at brands that do that. And I'll give them compliments right here. John Burroughs is one of them. He's amazing. Morgan Ingram, who you just recently were, interviewed, same thing. And you, Koka Sexton, no matter where you work, it's like when Koka puts a message out there, you have your following of people who've known you for years and know your work. I'm taking notes when you post because it's not some fluffy piece and you're not doing it to be like, look, hi, I'm Koka. It's, hi, I know what I'm talking about. Here's my insight. And you give data just like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. Michael Brito. There's another perfect example. Somebody, when he drops knowledge in LinkedIn, you're walking away with like a sandwich of knowledge. And you're like, holy crap, I'm able to like unpack this and have to come back. I got to star Koka's post or Michael's post or Burroughs' post and be like, okay, I got to come back to this because this isn't a scroll by kind of thing. So where do you see personal branding in the business world today? Where do you see it in 2020 as we're all shooting on the same hoop because virtual world is here to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of a personal brand, professional brand, whatever you want to call it, it's synonymous. It has been around forever. I think there's this idea of a personal brand. I mean, I even remember my earliest part of the career, like there were coaches and stuff out there, but I didn't understand it. So the concept of a personal brand is I think, timeless. What's happened in the last, let's just call it the last 6 months that I've seen, and why I think, talking about personal brand matters, is that there's so many people that are being displaced. So many industries that are either going away or having to adapt in this kind of pandemic environment in ways that lots of people are losing their jobs. I used to talk about personal brand as a component of social selling. You have to leverage your professional brand to fill your pipeline, yada, yada. But it all started with your personal brand. And so it was always a component of the talk track, but never of the main topic. And right now I'm happy with making this the main topic because so many people need this information. There are so many people that need to find a way to displace themselves, or I guess not displace, that are already displaced, to separate themselves from the other thousands of people that are looking for the exact same job. And how do they put themselves out there? How do they, do they use video? Should they write? All of these things, it's foreign to them. And all they've already always been kind of accustomed to is this idea of, I have a resume and that should get me a job. But in this day and age, that resume is not going to be enough. You have to have a name behind that piece of paper that people recognize.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because that is very, very true when we talk about that you do, it's not about your resume. It's not about where you've been. Nobody really cares. At the end of the day, I've interviewed a lot of people to work for our company. And at the end of the day, I want to see how they perform, right? And it's funny because it used to be the opposite. It used to be like, oh, I'll never hire anybody who has 2 years experience and suddenly has a fancy title, right? No, those people could be top performers, and that's who you want to go with because you don't know their story. I mean, it's the same disadvantage that our fellow brothers and sisters in uniform go when they come out, right? How many recruiters sit down, and you've worked in the recruiting industry, so you know this. How many recruiters sit down and they look across and they see a veteran who served and has spent maybe 3 or 4 tours and deployments, most of their 20s, they, were gone. And all of a sudden they're sitting across from you. How do you know that they're not talented? How do you know they don't have the skills when you're like, well, you don't have a job background? Well, technically you do. I mean, it's not like you were sitting around your 20s doing nothing. Yes, you were in a sandbox.
Yeah.
You and I both have that as experience, but somebody gave both you and I an opportunity. So I think that's where personal branding and telling your story is where people need to be now, and understanding, oh, there's a story behind it. Because I could go tell you the story of a million veterans that I see online, and I'm like, I love their story because you see it. People, I'm a major getting out of the Army, and I'm looking for ... And you start putting it out there, and then you put the feelers out, and you're like, look, these guys are doing work. And I think that's a struggle because people don't try to build their personal brands anymore. They're like, oh, if I'm on LinkedIn, I need to look this way. And they forget that people look at all your social. It's not just LinkedIn. It's Twitter. It's how you present yourself on Facebook. It's kind of having your messaging go across, but not being the same everywhere. That rule still applies.
Yeah.
So
I also think that there's, a component of people knowing they have a personal brand or knowing they need to build it and just not knowing how to go about it. And my argument to that, or my rebuttal to that, is that everybody has a brand. If I ask your 5 closest friends or your family, tell me about blank, whatever, insert your name, they're going to tell me who you are, and that is your brand. Now, if I ask your 5 coworkers what they think about you, that is your brand, your boss. So, everybody has a brand to some component. the problem is that these people haven't learned how to take control of it. And once you learn how to take control of your professional brand, your personal brand, you're going to catapult your career. I used to say this. Used to talk track years ago around being the CEO of Me Inc. And what I mean by that is each of us as individuals run our own companies. We run our own finances. We pay our bills. We are this operations guy. We're making sure that all the stuff is working around us. We have to start thinking of ourselves as a marketing department and how we're going to put ourselves out there.
I love it. That's perfect. So when we come back from the break, we're going to continue this amazing conversation with Koka Sexton. So you can learn more for businessing. We're going to be businessing. This is why we have a Marine host, so he creates invisible words. We'll be back after the break to continue this conversation so we can make sure you understand what's going on in your business world. Koka and I are going to break down your business world and how you can make some changes, very simple, slight changes to what you're trying to do on social so your brand can be recognized and you can be taken serious. Welcome back. We're in our final segment here talking to my good buddy and guest today. I don't want to call him a social media guru, but I'm going to just because I know it'll irk him. No, just kidding. He has a great marketing mindset, one of the best out there in the Silicon Valley. And if your business is looking for help, especially if you're an SMB business, this is the guy you want to talk to. And this is why we have this show. So we're going to go back and continue our conversation with the great Koka Sexton. So that's the wrong camera. I don't know where we're going. We got cameras everywhere. There we go. Hey, it would help we put the right camera up. All of a sudden we get Catalina Island up. You are not Catalina Island. Koka, Catalina, close.
I'd like to be there, though.
Yes, I'll join you. It's rainy and just crappy here. So I guess I should stop complaining. We both live where smoke has been part of our lives. So it's good when the smoke goes away and we see blue sky.
Rain. Yeah. Blue sky is amazing right now.
It did this the other day, right? We had air quality, and you guys know your bad air quality is bad air quality, like in the 400, 500s, leading the way. And for it to wake up and be like, what's the air quality index? And, our little Amazon toy tells us it's 23. I'm like, oh my God, run outside. Breathe the air in.
Exactly.
But Koka, before you go, I want to talk about like some tips and tricks that you see with folks out there building their brands. With everybody in 2020 fighting for the same thing. And I said this to you, and you're familiar with Brian Fanzo, and we were talking about separating your message. And before, it was easy to separate your message because you kind of stood alone. And now people are out of work or people are competing for the same space. And it doesn't matter if you're a Gen Z, millennial, or our generation, you're all fighting for the same thing and you have to differentiate yourself. And so you see it on all social. More video, which you and I and Brian and many others have talked about for years. Now you're seeing it everywhere. Whether it be good or bad, there's a lot of it. LinkedIn, which I love, but there's a lot of fluffy stuff. You're not really taking away any educational out of it. What are your tips and tricks for people who are dipping their toe into the pond? They're like, okay, I'm going to give this LinkedIn thing. I'm going to try social for social business. What are your tips to those folks kind of dipping their foot in that pond? These small to medium businesses are like, cool, I can compete with the big dogs now. I can get just that small market share like you and I have always talked about. You're not going to take 100% of Nike's business. Trust me, nobody is. Under Armour and Adidas have been trying. It doesn't work. But if you got just a sliver of that business, if you're an apparel brand, a shoe brand, just to get just that much, what is your advice to
those
folks?
It's a game changer.
Yeah, just what is your advice to folks like simple things? Yeah, true.
So, I think, the goal is, I have a whole methodology behind this. This really falls into this idea of visibility creates opportunity. And that then gets boiled down to this creation of like omnipresence and just being everywhere at all times. And professionals, brands, what I'm doing now is helping companies that are trying to break out of obscurity. I guess that's the term that I would use. They have a great platform. They have product market fit. They just have no one actually promoting them to get into the masses. It's all word of mouth. And so, that's what I'm helping companies with, is breaking out of obscurity, helping them figure out what this ideal customer profile is, what the messaging needs to be around it, and then leveraging my network, if it's within that wheelhouse, to start helping promote it. Within the idea of, the branding piece of it, one of the things that a lot of these CEOs, founders, these early stage founders that have, 10 employees at most, and most of them are the engineers, how do you get them to tell their story? And they're very apprehensive, but once they get it, they're on board. How do you tell that founder story? What's the vision for what you're trying to do? And how are you helping people today? And if you can get a founder to understand those components and build that story, that is a go-to-market plan that is going to rival any of your competitors, because people are emotionally attached to what you're doing.
Shoo-wee. That was sound advice, man. I said give a couple tips. I didn't say give up the farm, man. That was good. I like it. And it's true. What you're saying is on the money. I mean, that's how people need to differentiate themselves. And, startups are one of those things that so many people just think it's easy. And I think I talk to everybody who's on this show, anybody who's made it. And I always say, why is it so many people think it's like some lucky pill? You hear that so often. They got lucky. They got lucky. They got lucky. Not knowing it takes hard work to
It's actually really sad. It's really sad when people say that, because people have even said that to me, and I am not a level of celebrity that a lot of these other people are, and I know deep down that there is no such thing as luck. Luck is a component, but it's a very small component. Yeah. You have to put in so much work for anything to even look lucky on the outset. So whenever I see success, sure, there was some luck in there. Maybe it was a chance encounter, whatever that may be, but you have to be able to put in that work.
Absolutely. So, Koka, before you go, since you've given so much amazing advice, and if people haven't Googled you or tried to follow you right now while we've been talking, and shame on you, you're supposed to be paying attention to the show. At commercial breaks, you can go follow Koka. We know the rules around here. Darn it. Come on, pay attention to the show. That's why we have sponsors. They want you during commercial time to be looking Koka up. Sponsors are like, damn it, shut Eric up. So, Koka, how can people find you and connect with you offline?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way, kokasexton.com, the website. I am on every social platform as Koka Sexton, but if you want to reach out to me on social, I would think that LinkedIn is probably the best bet. I spend most of my time on social media on LinkedIn.
Sweet. So that's what you guys go do. Check out kokasexton.com. Go follow him on LinkedIn. Trust me, it's worth the follow. But please, if you connect with him and you came from here, say that you came from seeing him on To The Point, but don't spam him. Please don't spam. I beg you. If you're going to send a message to one of our guests on LinkedIn, please don't be the guy after or girl spamming. Nobody wants that. Nobody. None of us want that on LinkedIn. We promise you we don't want that. So, Koka, I thank you, bud, for coming on. We need to get you back on. I'd love to have you on monthly and get some of your business tips, because I think people need it. You are an icon when it comes to it. I know you're humble. It comes with your background of being a military guy. But you are truly one of those guys that I know I always still look up to when it comes to what you're doing. You're ahead of the curve. You know what's going on because you're one of the OGs, bro. So it's great to have you on. Everybody else, go follow the great Koka Sexton. Check him out, kokasexton.com. Koka, thank you so much for joining us today, and have yourself a great rest of your week.